Joy Talks, everyone. My name is Marlene Dominguez, and I'm joined by my really fly, cute husband.
Manny Dominguez. Name? I like that.
Manny Dominguez. And today we're going to start talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, but also super duper heavy, and it's mental health. Mental health. So what is mental health when you think about mental health?
Well, that's so interesting because I'm a young millennial, and the term mental health, I feel like didn't really become a thing in culture.
Yeah.
Until I was well into my teens. And so a lot of us in middle and high school, struggled with bouts of mental instability, but had no tools, nothing to name it, and it wasn't even valid. It's you're just a moron, or you just need to man up. You know what I mean?
And not only that, we also grew up in Dominican households that tú tienes depresión, mejor ve limpia algo.
Ponte Vive Peru.
Viva, what?
Vive Peru.
No, Viva Peru.
I don't know, that's how Vix Vaporu, Viva Peru.
Viva Peru, okay?
Yeah.
Dominicans or just...
I think that's true of a lot of minority cultures that had to grind to get to just baseline. They're we got to work so hard that if you need to work, if you want to get to where this person is a majority culture, ethnicity, you got to do 3 times the work to just get baseline. So yeah, forget your depression.
Yeah, and push through we did.
Yeah, you don't got time for that.
Yeah, and I'm
we don't have the luxury of validating your feelings and emotions, and even exploring if you do have a chemical imbalance.
Not even the luxury.
Or trauma.
We don't have the tools because
That's it.
I myself, as your parent, am struggling.
Right. So number one, we don't know what we don't know. So the fact that this is not even in my framework. And then number two, I hear you because now I know a little bit, but we don't got time for this. We don't have the resources for this because, it costs money. And then number three, it's a luxury to be able to, call off of work for a mental health day. A lot of our people in minority cultures, they don't know what that is.
Yeah, so I wrote down here, mental health is a person's overall emotional, physiological, and social well-being. That's kind of mental health, right? It's the health of your mental state. And I love talking about mental health. I'm not a therapist or psychiatrist. I actually wanted to go to school for therapy, and because I love talking to people, but then I found a huge joy in teaching and then realized that I was able to use those tools there. But mental health for me has always been a really interesting conversation, like you said, because it's not something that I grew up exploring about or talking about or being exposed to. It was very taboo in our culture. Ramona from across the street got something going on in her head, but no one's going to talk about it. Because legit, we just don't talk about other people's mess. Per se.
Air quotes on that.
Yeah, mess or stress or whatever. But it's really important, especially over these last few years, we have noticed the need of talking about mental health. We personally have had people lose their battle to their battle with their mental health and really struggle with depression and take their
self-harm and their lives. Yeah.
We've really walked that out with people that we love and just care for. So we obviously know the importance of it, but it has become real to us in these past few years. So.
Yeah. First, I want to start off by saying, babe, you have a beautiful mind. You know what I mean? Somebody needs to hear... scientifically, when you look at the inner workings of the brain, it is fascinating.
It is amazing.
What the prefrontal cortex does, what the frontal lobe does.
When it develops, everything.
Oh my word. It is just I gotta say it, this is not an overtly religious Christian podcast, but I don't know how you could look at the brain and not believe in God. Right. Like a divine, intentional designer and architect of the human being. Anyway, I want to start there by saying the mind is beautiful, beautifully complex. And for so long, right? Like all of our childhood, our parents' lives, our parents' parents, like that part of the human experience has been neglected as far as its health concerns. You know, you have people that have overtly like mental disabilities, and you know, they'll have special needs, and those people will hopefully get the right kind of care. And even then, that community is under resourced and underrepresented and other. But now that, you know, society has accepted that, you know, more of us than not have some kind of mental bout and struggle, especially as 2020 happened and the post 2020 world, it's like, okay, maybe we ought to pay some attention to not just our physical health, which is important, and we value that, our spiritual health, which is important, and we value that, even our emotional well-being, and we value that. But now, what is happening in the psyche, in the human mind? So I didn't want to just name that like, I think for such a time as this, there's been an awareness and a heightening of awareness, and I'm actually encouraged by it.
100%.
You know, what are your thoughts on mental health and where we are today with the like awareness of mental health and culture?
Yeah, so because I'm in the whole content world, I'm exposed to it so much more. And I feel like a few years ago, we weren't really kind of like sharing all of our things and struggles on social media like a lot of people are now.
That's true.
So people are
people
really
cry.
more,
People cry on social media now.
and they're finding an outlet, you know, like some people think that's weird or whatever, but people are really trying to find a community. Like,
I think most people are. I also think there are people that are just like trying to grow a following, and that's like what's trending right now.
yeah,
And that's true of everything.
and that could be their own struggle because that in itself is not healthy. You know what I'm saying? So even that, who are we
That's
to say,
good.
yo, she's doing that like for attention? Because at the end of the day, we know that makes us feel uncomfortable. But I think a lot of what I think a lot of our struggle right now is we are, well, first of all, social media can be such a blessing, but it can also be such a harm. And it's been both for me. Like I've had to have a really good stewardship with it because when I do see things like that, I do have to control. I'm a huge empath. So I do have to like put my emotions in check and in order because a lot of things that I do see that bother me probably trigger me because they probably weren't addressed in me, or like it's just like there's so much that happens when it comes to being exposed to other people's emotions because I pick up on it so much, you know? So to answer your question, I do feel like the state of our world in terms of social media, I mean, not social media, mental health, where the world is kind of really struggling right now. And we were never meant to have this much access to the world's information. So the fact that we are knowing what's going on all over the world at one time.
Jesus.
And then you like swipe up and you see another funny video, and then you swipe up and you see another fire, and then you swipe up and you see a genocide, or like there's so much happening in this world that I feel like if you're not being exposed to whatever's happening, like if your mind is kind of operating well, then I don't know what you're doing. You probably might be doing something. You might just be off of all things because...
Or you're numbing out.
Or you're numbing out because you have gotten so used to how intense this world is. So
yeah, the inundation of information. Can I say it this way? This just came to me. I think I wrote this down somewhere too, maybe on a thread. I used Threads for like 3 days. I don't know if other people watching or listening like use Instagram threads or threads. But anyway, I wrote it this way, like on my first thread ever. We have access to excess. So be mindful of what you access.
That's a word.
Because
like, I'm a snap for that.
Yes. It's what you're saying. Because we can like allow, you know, like the eyes are the windows to the soul. So like we can allow these things into our eyes, into our mind, you know, read and listen to, watch all kinds of things from all over the world that would trigger all kinds of emotions and memories and hurts and
intense.
If we are not being intentional with what we're filtering through, like even if we know it or not, it'll form our mental capacity.
Yes.
Our attention span is being formed with like the quick entertainment highs of TikTok, our lack of empathy or oversensitivity is being formed by like, you know, like the overt right versus left politically, or it's just overwhelming.
And then it becomes less of an empathy and more of an opinion based. Like, this is what I think about what you're going through, instead of let me stand with you and let me really like work that out with you. So when it comes to mental health, for me, I feel like I've always struggled with not my mental health, but I was just exposed to so much as a child. And I knew I had underlying things, but that I would never address. Honestly, love, not even until we got married, until I became a mother. Those things kind of blew up. And we spoke about it in our parenting episode, but it kind of like blew up in my face. And it was so hard to kind of confront as a woman, right? As a person who is in her late 20s, like, wait a minute, I've always had, this is why, this is what's going on. So it's so important to talk about it because it's real life, you know? So that's something, again, I said I'm passionate about, but I was never diagnosed with anything growing up. Like I said, my mom did the best she could, but I did suffer a ton of trauma that led me to struggle with anxiety in the future. And it, again, like I said, it wasn't until I had my son, mostly because after I gave birth to our son, Levi, our firstborn, I had really severe postpartum anxiety. And I didn't think it was anxiety because I've always kind of felt this way. But I do remember one time.
What do you mean you always felt this way?
I've always been like not an anxious person. I've always had some type of anxiety kind of lingering in my body. I just didn't really know what to call it. I just called it nerves. I just called it like kind of like my intuition. I don't know. I just always struggled with a little bit of anxiety.
That's deep. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, I've always struggled with a bit of it. And it wasn't until I had my Levi, and it was like, 3 or 4 days in, I had a really long labor, a bit traumatic. He was born healthy. I was healthy. And I remember one time you were changing his diaper. The man I trust and love and like, you know, I'm so open with. You were changing his diaper and it kind of glimpsed over and I saw that he had like a bit of a rash on his, I forgot what it was, like a diaper rash or something. And my brain just kind of went into like this overload of like, he's doing it wrong. No one's taking care of my baby. That's when I realized something was like up with me. And I texted my midwife, like, hey, I'm not feeling very well. Like everything is kind of intense for me. And rightfully so, you know, I'd just given birth. Hormones were all over the place. I know all those things, but I just knew that something was not right. And I spoke to my midwives and we spoke about my different options. Again, in the journey of a month postpartum, 2 months postpartum, what does that look like? And they were able to help me and navigate that with me to the point that you and I sat down. I was still going, so I was doing therapy, herbs, midwifery, and just being with my husband, trying to stay as fit as I could in the early days of postpartum. And this is something I never really speak about, but we definitely sat down and we said, hey, I think it's time for me to get on some medication like postpartum. And I was very ashamed. I was very ashamed. I felt so much shame, especially because I just went through a holistic journey and I just was feeling some type of way about taking medicine. But I also, there was no one talking about it. There was no research. There was like, no one was kind of like giving light to, okay, you can be a Christian, but you can also struggle with this, or you can be a mom or be happy.
But you could be an empowering person, a leader, and still, like that's the tension for me.
Struggle. Yes. Exactly. Because and again, that's when social media ties in, right? Like, oh, I didn't hit you up because I saw your social media was good. Miss Girl, that's my highlight reel. What you gonna, I'm gonna sit there with my postpartum. Good. You know, some people do, which is, I commend you if you are really vulnerable, but that's just, there's a time and place.
Have boundaries.
Yeah, there's boundaries. And although I'm on social media, I'm more of a, if you know me in real life, you know I'm more of a private person. We're both like very private. And it was so hard for me. Like I cried for so long before taking it. And I had your support. I had friends, very small friends who knew about it. Because again, there was so much shame tied into a very small dose of something, you know, to really get my brain, because like there was a chemical imbalance in my brain that was actually happening. And got on medication, and my life was like changed. I became a better mom, became a better wife, became a better. And again, this was 2020, so everyone needed some type of support. Everyone needed
so
something.
good. That's so
but
good.
I got a medication, really helped me. But what really, really helped me was tying my medication with three things, right? So medication was really helpful. Spiritual discipline was really helpful. And then also therapy. When I tell you my therapist...
Okay, talk about spiritual discipline. So we heard about medicine. Boom, you got on a small dose. It helped you restart. You felt better. Tell us about spiritual disciplines. For you, what was it for you that helped?
Yeah, so for me, I think, like I said, all these things kind of came about when I had Levi.
Yep.
And I remember... labor, I could talk about this forever, but labor is like an outer body experience. It's like a supernatural experience. It's the closest I've ever felt to the Lord. But also in this time, when I was giving birth to Levi, truthfully, it was the furthest I felt from the Lord.
Wow.
I did not have any spiritual discipline before I gave birth to Levi. And I, again, as an empath, was taking in all the information of the world. And I really, really struggled. It was so hard. And I just, for the first time in my walk with the Lord, doubted God and struggled with him being able to come and help me and save me and all the things. So I really, really struggled with that idea. And after I gave birth and obviously started my journey with the Lord, it was kind of like just, I'm a whole new person now. I'm like starting my new life. I don't know who I am. It was very much like I had to fight for what I know to be true. And I know that God gave me a brain and he made it so beautiful. And I know he also gave me a purpose, which is also so beautiful. And I know who I am in him. And I know that I am beautiful in him in all ways. So for me, spiritual discipline had to be, it was very different than when I got saved at 17 years old, right? It had to be a more intense, relentless pursuit and discipline where I had to put him first.
Okay, what does that look like? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's difficult when you're a new mom.
Right.
And I can't say you don't have time. You just don't have mental margin to know what to put in order first. Like I'm so used to opening my Bible and drinking my coffee and whatever. And it's like this sweet time. And like now I don't have that time. What does that time look like for me? So for me, being able to obviously put him first meant talking to him about these things first, being able to glorify him, but also ask for his help in this season. And it was complete surrender, whatever that looked like. I mean, we spoke about change, and that was the most uncomfortable, hardest change I've ever had to go through. And trying to figure out what he thought about that journey for me. Like, what's going on? Like, why am I going through this? And I never really, again, questioned the Lord. But for me, is one, putting him first in all things that I do. And figuring out ways to rekindle my relationship. Like when you're dating someone and then you're like, okay, we're moving on to the next step. This felt like the next step with Jesus. Like, okay, Lord, I no longer can sit down and just drink my coffee by myself. What does that look like? Okay, well, motherhood is a ministry. And when I do this is basically worship to you because my kids don't belong to me, they belong to you. So it became more of an adoration to him in everything that I did. And slowly but shortly, I felt like he was restoring me again.
That is amazing. Yeah, so I like that because when people hear spiritual discipline, I want you to talk about therapy next in a second. When
I'm actually looking something up for therapy.
When folks hear spiritual discipline, they're like, yo, I mean, it's in the word. The word discipline is not super appealing or attractive to a lot of people.
Because you think like gym and all the things.
Or when you hear discipline, you think about the things that you got to withhold or not engage in.
Right.
So be disciplined enough to not have another drink. Be disciplined enough to, not have sex until you get married. Like you think about discipline, you think about not doing, not having, and, you're talking about a discipline that actually makes you hungry for the Lord, putting him first, seeking him. It's a discipline. It's the discipline of more.
Right. And there was no balance. There was no rock for me. So like I spoke about medication. I eventually got off of it about a year later because I felt stable enough to continue. And it was such a blessing for me. Right. So like needed that stability. When it came to having spiritual discipline, there was no foundation anymore for me to kind of rely on. So I needed to rebuild that.
That's
for
beautiful.
me to feel secure and for me to remember, again, all the things that I am.
Is what you're saying. It's kind of like when you go on a retreat. It's like, you know, if you are in a romantic relationship listening to this and you need to rekindle that fire with that significant other, you know, sometimes you gotta do something as extreme as like going on a retreat with them, vacation, just you and them, put the phones up and like really, and that's what it sounds like, honey, you were doing with the Lord of okay, I can't go on a vacation because I have a baby. But with this baby boy, my firstborn, in a global pandemic in 2020, I want to spend disproportionate amount of time with you. I want to seek you. I want to get in your word. I want to hear your voice. I want to put myself in a position to like be self-aware, God aware, others aware, and like just look for you in my life. Look for your fingerprints. Like not to over spiritualize everything, but to realize that, everything is spiritual at the same time.
Yes.
Is that tension of like, I'm not going to, say this says the Lord or this is the enemy. If you think about the Genesis 1 that the Lord spoke and the earth was made, and you could see God in the earth that you see.
Exactly. And I do want to speak on real quickly about how in the spiritual world, right, if you grew up going to church, those things, I don't know what kind of church you went to, but the church, I gotta say that we didn't speak about mental health. We spoke about kind of shushing it away or rebuking it or getting it out the way. And
we speak about God didn't give you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind, which is fire and truth that we want to cling to.
Verse. But now as we're teaching our kids, like, babe, fear is real. Like, he didn't give it to you, but it doesn't mean that it's not in your midst.
Oh, you're going crazy now.
You know what? So it's like,
you're going crazy.
Yeah, we're teaching our kids. We can't say, Papi, no, God didn't give you a spirit of fear. Yeah, he did not give that to you. That's not a gift.
But it is there. It exists, and you will feel it.
And God gives the best gifts.
That is so
That's how I think about that
verse. We can't just talk about what God gives. We got to talk about the curses and the darkness that's around us. Because if I'm going to talk about the good, then what happens when the bad comes, when the darkness comes?
Exactly.
Ooh.
Exactly.
You got to speak truth to power, but you got to know, like, there's other powerful forces that 100%. Are not true. 100%. That is so good.
Yeah. So when it came to spiritual discipline, and then when it came to therapy, I feel like therapy was the most incredible time. I had an amazing therapist at the time for a good year. And she just taught me so much. I feel like I had to really remove shells off of me that built over years. And
talk about the software.
I knew you were going to ask me.
My favorite nugget you got from therapy.
Well, I was trying to actually look for it real quick so I can like write or share exactly what she had said, but let me think, because I mean,
I'm gonna prop it up. So
prop it up because I've shared
this is
so many
fire.
times.
Like I want to get it tatted with you. This is so sick.
Yeah, me too.
But it's like you basically explained to me, and this is so good, that our bodies are the hardware, like in the computer, PC.
Like we're made a specific way.
Right. Everybody looks a certain way, made certain like things, tools and screws, whatever. Some of us have loose screws, but again, I have some screws that are loose, but we all have hardware that make up our body, make up our, a part of who we are. But then we have an inner person, right? The soul person, the spirit, and that is considered the software.
Yes.
So the things that form over time, whether you are doing spiritual practices with yourself or your family, if you're a religious person, whether you are engaging in like hopes in the universe or crystals, or if you're an atheist, whatever it is that you believe beyond like the natural world is like the software. It's the thing that program you. Think about like a computer, your iPhone. It's the thing that allows Siri to speak. It's the software. And she said,
well, when I was trying to figure out what this looks like for me, because okay, I've done the medication and I've done the spiritual discipline and I'm talking about it. I'm doing EMDR. I'm really releasing this. I cannot operate with the old software that I was living with before, because this is how my brain is wired, right? So like, let's say I'm wanting to receive this love from my husband.
Come on.
That I never got as a kid. And I have all these pre-assumptions and just everything.
Yeah, these systems that helped you.
And yes, these systems that helped me feel secure at the time no longer serve me now.
You don't need them anymore.
No.
Because you have somebody that will love you for who you are.
Yeah, and not only that, it's more so what helped me then no longer serves me. Like what helped me be a really firm 7-year-old girl who never let anyone do anything to her, especially a man. 33-year-old Mar doesn't need that anymore.
So powerful.
You know, it's a whole new software. Like
Wow.
I'm building new wiring in my brain.
It's like new updates, if
It's
you
a
will.
new
New
update.
neurological pathways that will
Exactly.
create breakthrough for who
Yeah.
you actually are and what you need for Marlene now.
And how do you do that? You put in the work, right?
Oh,
like you
man.
constantly put in the work. And I feel like I was putting in the work. And when she has shared that with me, like your old software no longer fits your new, like your new self.
Yeah, your
like
current hardware.
Your current hardware.
goodness.
And you're operating in this old software. That's why you're kind of struggling because you've always done this before and you're always allowing this to kind of consume you. If you do not shift kind of gears from that old software to your new software, you're never going to be content. Like you're never going to flow from that.
That is so fire.
It's so
like think about it
good.
when you have an iPhone or any phone, a smartphone, and you don't do automatic updates.
Yeah.
And so you have you're 4 or 5 updates removed and your phone starts glitching and not working
Or
properly.
it's not that. I'm about to take it real back.
Come
Remember
on.
the Blackberries?
I love the
It's
BlackBerry.
like taking the Blackberry software and putting it into an iPhone and
It's not
saying
compatible.
you're gonna work. Like you're gonna work. You're gonna receive all the same information. You're gonna act the same. You're gonna
Right.
look the same.
Ain't no
you're gonna,
keyboard on the iPhone.
right? And you're gonna get all of the updates and everything,
Wow.
which you can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit. Like this is not who you
So
are
good.
anymore.
That's so
And when
good.
I realized that, girl, I
Girl.
promise you, my life was changed because I was able to be more open and more willing and no longer beat myself up and say, I'm just rewiring my software every single day. When I go outside and I open my eyes, I'm rewiring my software. Things that were really triggering before, things, don't get me wrong, it's still a work in progress, but things that really I struggled with before, I am feeling more confident about it now because I realize I'm a whole new person.
So I don't know, you got a verse too, but
Yes.
Romans 12:2, Paul tells us, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world,
That's right.
but be transformed by the renewal of the mind. Yo, I know, whatever circles you find yourself in as far as North Star or your zenith, your ultimate reality. But I know for sure in Christian circles, we don't do a good job of talking about the renewal of the mind.
That's right.
We talk about, again, get rid of fear. You got power, you got love, and you got a sound mind, and what you have and what the promises are. But tell me what my promises are and also help me walk in them. I want to be a child of promise that walks in promise. I don't want to just be a child of promise that has no direction.
Right.
I know my identity, but sometimes I also need some guidance to walk in my identity.
Yeah.
And this fires me up with the mental health conversation because, in Christian circles, we poo-poo the people that don't have mental health or that have mental health issues and frankly, let me just be frank because this is Brave Talks after all. We poo-poo the people that are not faking it till they make it. People that are not good at pretending. People that just kind of wear their heart on their sleeves. That are like, yo, I'm just all kinds of jacked up. We're kind of like, yo, can you quiet down and go to the back?
Yeah.
You're kind of ruining the vibes. And
Because we want that, right? We want just to feel good all the
yeah,
time.
we want to avoid it. We want to hey, we're good.
Ooh, if you can't see this on the podcast, he's break dancing right now.
I'm going crazy right now. It's always easier temporarily in the moment to just avoid the conversation. You could, I'm good.
Right.
I'm fine. And we just settle for, because I don't want you to know my stuff. Because
It's
if you know my
hard.
stuff, if you know my mental problems, will you still love me?
Yeah.
Will you still respect me and care for me? And I think that risk of losing the credibility or respect from people that we know and love makes us not talk about mental health issues. Especially men. I want to speak about it as a man for a second.
on,
I
speak
think you did
about
a
it.
phenomenal job speaking for men and women. And specifically as women in postpartum as well. But man, I think as a man, I don't have many examples growing up for sure at all. And even now in my manhood, I think my bros and I and my older brothers, we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
You have, and I want to talk about this before we wrap, honey, this swing of the pendulum to the side of mental health awareness where I feel like people are overly sensitive. They're talk about being a child of promise. Okay, let's also remember that being a victim is not your identity.
Right.
Like, I validate you. I got no validation is big. I validate you. I see you where you are. Okay, I want you to know. I believe you. Are you going to stay here? You just said my level. We got to do the work.
You got to do the work.
We got to do the work. And sometimes you need somebody else to lift up your hands before you can lift up your own. We want to do that. We want to rally around you.
I'm going to sit with you for like a day or two, but we're going to get up.
You feel, ooh, like the Bible says that even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, not sit and pitch our tent in it, keep walking through the dark valley. Don't just sit. And so as a man, I do feel that tension, honey, of, I think I never want to be in a dark valley ever mentally. I want to fake it. I want to pretend. I want to, I want to like masculine
feels awful
my way through. I want to just say I'm good. Like I'm a man. Like I don't like men don't struggle with that. Is what I want to choose to believe, and it's just not true.
No,
That's why so many men are like neck deep in pornography.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of my brothers are dealing with mental health issues through this dopamine rush.
Yeah.
That guess what, my love? Sooner or later, like that time of porn is not enough.
Right.
And then you got to watch more, and then Lord forbid you start doing more, and you step out and you're mad. And so for me, I'm exploring. First of all, I got a therapist who I love and respect. He's great. And then me and my bros, I think, are doing a better job having these conversations.
It's pretty awesome.
Surfacing we do weekly check-ins. As you've seen them on my phone. Like I
haven't seen them.
No, you've seen, right, that's for us, but you've seen me, like, I'm going to pull this up and walk out.
Yes, they're private between you guys.
So it's like those, we call it Waffle Wednesday. I don't know why. I think I saw it on social media, but every single Wednesday on a weekly basis is a check-in. Mental health. Well, how can I be praying for you? What are you struggling with? What's a win that we can celebrate with each other? And mental health for me, that has brought me such clarity and even such awareness of my mental state as I'm doing my life.
As a man, as a father, as a husband, as a pastor, as people, and as a Christian is so important. I've loved watching you grow in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my brothers out there, all the men listening and watching this, like, I just encourage you, get some brothers, man, to walk with. And I just talk about sports and whatever, working out, whatever you're into, like, go a little deeper, go beyond the surface from the depths of who you are, like the thing beneath the thing that you would say, okay, I think this is what I'm struggling with.
And really quickly, can you talk about parenting two boys through that and how you're helping them be these strong kids who don't pitch their tent in their darkness, but also push through and have empathy at the same time.
Learning to name their feelings. So asking our boy, I ask my sons, like, what is that you're feeling? And like our 2-year-old recently, I was like, I'm mad.
He big man.
And he big man. He goes, he stomps. Ooh, it's so cute. But I was like, who you stomping at? Little boy, he goes, I'm mad, Dad.
Yeah.
And so why are you mad? And then he would, because, because his T's and C's are so cute. And he'll think about it, because. And so he would just say, because. And I got to ask him, is it because, your big brother did this or said this? And yes. And then he gets going. It's almost like he needed a little bit of a boost to say, okay, that's why. Yeah. Oh yeah. And that.
And our oldest have been exposed to the calming corner, and you partner with me with that so well.
Yes. You've done a good job of like teaching him tools of like, so, okay, take a deep breath, count to 4.
Yes. It's a future man. Yeah.
What do you see in the room is like, how do I de-escalate from this mental state that, you just see red.
Yeah.
Like as a man, like I be blacking out sometimes. I thank God, I don't know, I have tools now to allow myself to get there. But like, what's in the room? What colors? Count this, think about that. Listen to this song. Very necessary. So yeah, our boys to their level are getting exposed to that and are on the journey with that, which is so sweet.
Amazing.
It is.
I love you so much for that, because it's so important to do that early on.
So my last question for you, my love, would be, this has been such a good conversation. My goodness. Mental health, advocacy and awareness, and you mentioned the spiritual authority. So spiritual discipline is like what you do to kind of like stay close to the Lord, to keep your flesh, as we call it in the Christian world, submitted to your spirit, which is like your inner self, your true self.
Right.
How do you balance this? Like, and maybe balance is not the right word, but how do you steward? I want to advocate for mental health and validate. And I also want to tell you, you're more than a conqueror in Christ Jesus. And, you're the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. Like all of these promises that we have spiritually. How do we do both? Because we can do both.
Yeah, so it reminds me of a verse, 1 Peter 5:7. It says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for me.
Ooh,
He cares for you. And
preach
I
that.
just remember that often. God cares so much about my mental health than I do.
Wow.
God cares so much more about my
Can
anxiety.
you gotta slow that down, baby? You gotta slow that down.
God cares so much about my anxiety. He
Somebody
cares so
has to
much
hear
more
that.
about your depression. He cares so much about your intrusive thoughts. He cares so much about your addiction than you do. He cares so much because
Wow.
that was never in
What a
your
perspective.
purpose. Like these things are hindering you from living a life of freedom. So I always think about this verse because it's such a true verse for me. Like I'm casting all my cares on him because he cares for me first. And I've learned that and I've operated in that when it comes to having the difference between, like you said, pushing people forward, right? And then, but also empathizing. Again, I'm empathy first. So that's always going to be a first for me. I'm going to sit with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk this out with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to validate how you feel because emotions are real, but I'm also not going to shy away from the truth, especially when it comes to things like this. God is reminding us that, man, he cares for you. He doesn't want you to stay in that state of mind and mental health. So if you are dealing with things that are really
Overwhelming, all
or
consuming. Yeah.
consuming your thoughts, I do say like reach out to those that you love the most. And it doesn't have to be 5,000 people. It could be one person
Yes.
who you love and
Yep.
care for. I remember with my mental health, with losses that I went through, I reached out to a few people and they were able to lift my hands. They sat with me in my grief, but also, like the Bible says, rejoice with those who rejoice
Yes.
and mourn with those who mourn.
So good.
I feel like I did a good job building the community around me that can do that.
Yep.
Because a lot of people talk about the lack of village, but a village, you gotta build it.
Ooh.
And you gotta become the village before you expect the village to show up for
She
you.
going crazy.
So for me, I just figured out ways on how people needed me. And I'm not always gonna get it right. I'm
No,
physical
that's-
touch, I'm
come
words
on
of
now.
affirmation, I'm
Yeah.
super vibrant and loud, and I've learned how to work with people, and especially people in my life, or let's talk about just my family, right? I've learned how to sit with what we're going through, and then, hey, we're gonna get up and we're gonna keep walking because we're not gonna stay there. And there's been a lot of people who've stood there and stayed and eventually struggled,
Man.
But I say stand up, stand up, invite people in your journey, and keep going forward.
That's so
'Cause
good.
you matter.
And if you're watching or listening and you're like, yo, I don't know how to stand and I can't, comment, reach out to us. Depending on where you live in the world, we have resources that we can connect you with and to. We'll do our best to do that because, I also know that some people are just like, I don't even know what up is anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know up from down and left from right.
Yeah.
And so like we said, we're not professionals in any way, shape or form, but we are people that are real, that have
love
had our
others.
bouts with mental health, and we love you enough to talk about this because that's what we do at Brave Talk. So
Yeah, and if there's anything else you want us to explore in terms of mental health, postpartum,
Yeah.
anything, please let us know because
Yep.
we don't want to just create these episodes and just say, hey, that's it, that's all we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
We do want to give you guys opportunities to let us know what you want to know, what
Yes.
you want to hear, and how we overcome. Again, we're not professionals, but we do love people. And
Yep.
We do love Jesus, and we know what he says about his people. So let us know what you guys want to know too.
So for a brave step this week, as we think about mental health, and no matter where you are, right on that continuum, like unaware / don't believe in, mental health bouts, or, diagnosed with some things and you already know and are aware of what your mental health bouts are. And maybe you are exploring or taking medication already, or maybe you're like just off the deep end, like really, really struggling, and don't know where to turn. Wherever you are, we really do just encourage you in your brave step this week to, Marlene said it better than I can. Can you just reach out to one person? There's something that happens when the Galatians talks about this, when we share burden with one
Yes.
another. And I know you don't want to be a burden. I hate being a burden. I hate that. But there's something about like sharing burden.
You're not a burden.
You're not a burden, number one.
No.
Number two, there's that bigger phrase, trauma dumping is like a phrase that I've been hearing a lot recently. That's not the invitation. The invitation is to reach out to one person for the sake of connection. They don't have to know all your stuff. I just want them to know that you're going through some stuff.
Yeah.
Does this make sense? They don't have to know all your stuff. Just tell one person this week that you're going through some stuff and allow that to flourish. Maybe that'll flourish into a deepening of relationship or a resourcing to help meet that mental health bout. But that's your brave step this week. Man, we love you. It's always a pleasure. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.